Hey Untold Radio Network fans, want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
The paranormal, UFOs, monsters, mysteries. You're listening to Talking Weird. And now, from a cabin deep in the Northwoods, your host, Dr. Dean Bertram.
Well, greetings all my fellow weirdos and weirdettes. Welcome to Talking Weird on the Untold Radio Network. I'm your host, Dean Bertram. I'm so delighted that you've joined me tonight, or you're listening or watching later on one of the many platforms on which you can see us on, where you can hear us across all podcast platforms, all the shows on the Untold Radio Network. And of course, you can watch us on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter, all the usual places. So it's so great to have you here with me this week. I'm super excited this week about our guest, which I'll get to in a minute, but also because I'm off to Jersey this weekend, New Jersey. I'm going to the Jersey Devil Fable Festival, which I'll put up on screen now, part of which is the Jersey Devil Film Festival runs part of this weekend. So it goes from Friday, May 3rd through Saturday, May 4th. And I'm screening my film. It'll in fact be the Eastern US premiere of it, of The Shaver Mystery, which is a short documentary, 40-minute short documentary, which is kind of cribbed from my upcoming feature documentary about Ray Palmer, The Shaver Mystery, and the creation of modern UFO belief. And many of you have probably been listening to me talking about this documentary for well over a year now. So if you're in the area, if you're anywhere near Asbury Park, New Jersey, get along to the Jersey Devil Film Festival this weekend. This Friday night, my film's playing, although there's films throughout the Saturday as well. And come and see me. I'll be wandering around regardless. I'm lucky I've found a house sitter. I can usually never leave my cabin in the Northwoods because I have chickens and I have a basement that floods if there's a power outage and all these other kind of good things. So I can never go unless I have somebody watching my house. And I do, which means I can actually leave the Northwoods for a couple of days, which is fantastic. And also, of course, tonight it's Beltane Eve or May Day Eve, right? It's Walpurgis night. So I can't think of anybody who'd be more interesting to talk to about this than tonight's guest. He's a longtime fan of history, both the kind they teach in school and the history they want kept hidden. He lives in a 116-year-old haunted home in Racine, Wisconsin, with his wife Barb, 4 Alaskan Malamutes, and a cat that controls his life. He's the producer of the film MILWAUKEE Mafia, Frank Balistrieri, and he's also the author of several books, including Mr. Big's Magical Guide to Gambling. And magical there meaning spelt with a K rather than with a C, so with a C and a K, so MAGICKAL, which implies real magic as opposed to stage magic. And anyway, so I'm delighted to welcome back to Talking Weird my dear friend, Mr. Wayne Clingman.
Hey.
Man, it's great to have you back. Sir. It's so good to have you here, especially it's an appropriate night, I think, to have you on Beltane Eve or Walpurgis night or May Day Eve or whatever we call it. And I'd just like to quickly thank a new channel member, Charles Smoke. Thank you, Charles, for being here with us on the Untold Radio Network. It's folks like you that help us survive and make it worth doing what we do. Lots of people in the chat tonight. So can you tell us a little bit about, Wayne, maybe while I flash up some chat things, how you got interested in magic and the occult?
Sorry, it's quite the long tale. I'll try to make it short. I got involved in Wicca because out of the Army, I went to a bar and there was a guy with two girls, and being out of the Army and being really, really young, and only one thing in my mind, I wanted two girls too. They tried to freak me out, and instead they freaked me out and ended up inviting me to a Beltane ceremony in Madison, which I went to. And then I got involved in the local Wicca community for quite some time. Going back within the book, we find out that my great aunt, who's now long in the grave, was a root worker. She knew all kinds of different, we would call magic tricks, to do different things from gardening, home protection. And one thing that I learned from her is all the different things you could do to improve your luck. I mean, all kinds of great things.
What kind of things? Give us some examples.
Well, she can make mojo bags, which is a charm that you would wear with you. It could be charged to you. It would help you do things, be protected, you're in danger. She often make them for local gamblers who play cards. They help them do their card game, or so they thought. Many times, now mind you, I'm a little boy, and she was probably in her 60s then, but I can remember nights that she made them for 5 or 6 men at a time. That would one at a time would show up, and she'd give them the bag, they pay her off, and they go on their way. I mean, all kinds of interesting things that you can learn when you listen. And she was trying to teach me as a child, but around the time I was 8, we moved from that area of the state to Madison. We lost contact with my relatives, who then quickly died. I only became back to used to it when I got involved back in Wicca, and some other things occurred that got me interested in it. I said, hey, I know these things. I know how to do this stuff. I thought it was entertaining, to say the least.
Can you tell us any of the things that went into those magical bags, or is that kind of...
Well, it depends on what you want it to do. If it's for gambling, you can use for gambling. Is it going to be home protection? What's it going to be used? When I would make a bag for my own use, everybody's comes up differently. Different. You move yourself, Dean. Everybody has different ways of doing things. Mine's by far not the only way. Everybody has their own system, which is fine. I would have a $2 bill. I have a mercury dime, silver dime, mercury dime, because mercury dimes had silver content. I have different an acorn, because I find those to be lucky. There's other kinds of lucky stones in plant materials. I find lucky in my life, so I have those bags. I would then charge it by breathing into it, perhaps reciting a prayer, a poem or two over it as well. I would carry that within my person. Every so often you have to recharge them and make them new, because they'll last forever. The big thing with mojo bags is you shouldn't let a person touch it. You should never let a woman handle it.
Huh.
Yeah. Other magical things you learn is protection. Never, 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 as a young man, ever eat cookies made to you by a woman that's not your wife.
Oh, is this an actual superstition or a magical
Absolutely.
thing?
It's one from my area, my country, where my kin come from. Big one.
I'm in trouble then. I've eaten cookies by all kinds of women over my life. Good grief.
Okay. My relatives would think that has to be a bad thing, because there's ways that an unscrupulous woman could use cookies and have you eat them that would bring you underneath their spell.
Oh.
That's one big thing I found within the community I ran with for a while.
That might explain my love. That might explain the history of my love life. Just saying.
It could easily explain the history of love life. Easily. Well, let me tell you, going back, I was saying, it would also to teach, meaning the people tell you never use magic to try to control someone. It doesn't work out. Stay away. It's a bad thing. Don't do it. Of course, a lot of the young women, because more women than men in these things, would do it. And usually bad things happen. I had a roommate once that one was fell in love hand over heels with a motorcyclist, and she wanted him badly. So she did a spell on him to make him fall in love, and he certainly did. And then she couldn't get rid of him. I mean, she could not get rid of him.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
It's like a horror movie.
In that degree, it was. I mean, he would break restraining orders. He'd break in her home. He followed her to work one day, went to the factory to find her. And yeah, that got real bad. Again, don't do this thing. So, whatever you do, take away from this thing. Don't ever use magic to try to control someone else. It's never a good idea. Don't know if it works or not, but if it does, the payback's not usually a good thing. Stay away, Will Robinson.
We were talking on the phone briefly the other day because I like to chat to folks sometimes before I do a show, and we were just sizing up what we might talk about. And we were talking about how you can use, and you mentioned it earlier too, but you didn't go into details, how you can use these kind of practices to for home security. And I jokingly said, well, I have two patron saints, Smith and Wesson, and they protect my home just fine, being a smart ass. But I mean, as far as actually these type of magical techniques, what are the things that people do to protect their homes?
What we do here, I live in Racine, Wisconsin, in a very, very unsafe neighborhood, right? And when we had drug houses show up, I would, right on Richard Rackland, sorry. What I would do is I would go outside during the middle of the day so people could see me. I would take out my salt. I would draw runes on the sidewalk. I would draw runes on the road, the ones, the protective ones, right? I don't know if the runes protected my home or the fact that this fat white guy was nuts that stopped the drug people from bothering me, but they didn't bother us. When my wife had a coworker who was being harassed by someone, I showed her the charms that she could draw on pieces of paper that keep the guy who was bothering her away, and it did. Oh, yes, and did it ever. Again, was it the charms that kept them away? It themselves was the fact that the guy would show up and see these crazy things on the windows and think this woman's crazier than I am. I need to go away. Don't know, don't care. It worked. So did Smith Wesson, by the way. But let's try not to go there if we don't have to.
Hopefully not. I live in a rural area as well. Because everybody here's patron saints are Smith and Wesson, the bad guys stay away because they don't want to encounter those patron saints, so they don't break into houses. Joking aside, so where did you learn those type of techniques you were just talking about back in the day from elderly relatives?
Some of it, when I running with the Wiccans I ran with, that's some of the information I learned from them. Now, mind you, God, how do I even go there? Most of these, I'm not a guy who participated in the circles per se. I would show up, drink too much, chase girls, drink too much, chase more girls, drink too much, and listen. Sobering up, right? I gained a lot of information that way. I was not the person to do the circles, though I probably should have, or the rituals sort of things, because I also found, and again, this is my opinion, not saying it's good, not saying it's bad, it's just my opinion. So many times, the person wanting, again, we're talking primarily women, primarily college-age girls who wanted a job.
We're a family show too, remember? So
we're not. Look, we're in a job, so they want to do a circle, do a ritual, so they can find a job. Great, fantastic. Could they get up, do the job interview? Not so much. Could they show up to work 2 days in a row? Oh, maybe not. Could they do the resume that they needed to have? No, probably not. But again, we'll do the magic because they get that positive reinforcement, right? That's what basically they're after, in my opinion.
Do you think there's a lot of I'll tell you why I asked for. I'm about to ask you. Do you think there's a lot of it in rural Wisconsin? Because when I first came here, I was told by somebody I had no reason to doubt, who I knew fairly well, that the person I'm talking about had been to, not practicing in, but had been to events on a farm here, which were pretty. I mean, I don't think there were any human sacrifices or anything, but it sounded like pretty strong content occult stuff, like fires and naked dancing around and ritualism in barns and all of this. And I was like, wow, this is like out of a Hammer horror movie. I thought this was like, the Bible Belt.
Well, the thing, I would say yes and no. I mean, when I think of cult, right, I think of Aleister Crowley. I think of the dark side. I think a group of people dancing around the fire at night after they've been building hay all day, or after they help put up a barn for something else, and they'll get naked and dance and have a couple beers. They're just having a good time, right? Maybe they're worshiping God their own way. That's wonderful type stuff, right? Nothing's being killed, nothing's being sacrificed. They're not giving their soul to whatever they're doing. This helping each other out, having that sort of community, right? Is that thick Wisconsin? I would say parts of it. Yeah, I know that thickest size in Barneville area. Probably in the Berber area. The Berber have its own cults as well. I would say probably in the Spur area, if I had to guess. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you don't need a group of people can do it. You can do it. It's a good way to teach your children. Involvement in the pagan community, as I was also a good way to teach your children things like nature spirituality, why we don't pollute, the water, why we pick up our trash, right? Why we give more than we take, why we help the people who might be older or might be sick or might be infirm. These positive traits that can often be taught by a community more can be taught by a school.
And do you think
one of the more valuable things from it?
You talked about people before maybe wanting to do it to get a job or other things. Was there a commonality in what attracted people to it? Was it that type of aspect, or do you think it was because there was the idea of being able to use their will to somehow affect reality by doing ritualism? Or
I believe looking for a sense of community. Two types of people. The people looking for a sense of community, and that can be argued that's what I was looking for. The people who are looking for weaker-willed people to prey on. There's a big problem with that. When I was involved, the group I was involved with, there's a big problem with men showing up and saying to young, vulnerable girls,
gosh,
"Oh, I have the power. I don't need to use a condom. I have the power."
We go for a family show again, remember, so we have to be careful.
But I don't need you. We don't need to practice safe sex because I have the power to do these things, right?
Right.
It's a simple way to, in a nutshell, get over, scam, take advantage of.
That doesn't sound good at all. But now let's jump onto the book, because you have a new book out and it's related to all of this. And I'll put it up on screen here. It's Mr. Big's Magical Guide to Gambling. And as I said in the intro, it's magical spelt MAGICKAL, which implies real magic instead of stage magic, right? So how did this? I mean, obviously you have a background in all of I suppose, this type of stuff. But what made you think to write a book on Magical Guide to Gambling?
Sure. Myself and Ms. Liberty are friends on Twitter. And with spending I spent a lot of time on Twitter. I've written books in gambling on Twitter. I've written books in gambling. I'm always interested in trying to do more in that field. And with Miss Liberty, working conservative, I'm insane. I asked her if she would help me write a book, and she said, "Let's do it." So we did it. Yeah, Mr. Fox. And we talked, and she took the more. If I did the practicality of the different charm stuff you can use, she talked about the spirituality because of it, right? It was a great team. I can't think of anybody better to write that kind of a book with. But I would talk about things like why card players need to have, Hoyt's cologne, and use that as cologne before they go and play cards.
What is that? It's just Hoyt's cologne? What is that?
Yeah. It's spelled HLYTS.
Is that a standard cologne in America or something? Or?
Yeah, it's made. Most of this comes from the Tennessee, I think, is where it's made from these days. And what you do is before you go to play cards, is you anoint yourself, as in as you would any cologne. And it's supposed to help you become lucky in cards, lucky in playing cards, right? The mojo bag, you take the magically charged mojo bag with you, become lucky in cards. Now, mind you, if you have a high card, which is an ace, and you know the guy next to you is three of a kind, full, right? That Hoyt isn't going to help you out much, right? You use your senses, right? It won't overcome the odds. It would help. Best case scenario, as I find it to be, is keep you centered so you make wise decisions, such as, if I gamble too long, have I blown my budget? Is this a good bet? Is this a safe bet? Is it time for me to go home? Gee, I've had 6 shots. Maybe it's time I quit gambling. Those common sense things that many people don't think of. And in my opinion, if you do the mojo bag thing, if you use the Hoyt's cologne thing, it gives you the confidence maybe to play the cards, gives you confidence to interact with people, And it helps you stay grounded enough so you figure out, gee, I spent $20 here tonight. It's time for me to go home. Or I lost $400. I'm not going to win it back. Those common sense actions that many people, when they gamble, don't do.
That's interesting. It's very much, then a lot of that sounds like it's about establishing a kind of sense of confidence as well as an equilibrium. Yes. So you're gambling both, feeling confident, but also being sensible. To obviously go to more an extreme, Joe Fox, who's a good friend of the show. Hey, thanks so much for being with us, Joe. He says, how do you, Mr. Big, feel about manifesting gambling wins?
If you can do it, go for it. By all means. If you can do it, go for it. Now, there's people in Vegas that for a couple of $1,000 will teach you to roll dice for craps, guarantee your numbers. They make a lot of money saying they can do that when that's not possible, but yet they make money. If you think you can manifest to win, again, go for it. Just beware, let's be careful how much money you might want to be losing if you are on a losing streak.
Now, for those of you who want to, I was just going to say, for those of you who want to read your book, there's a link in the show notes. So people, wherever you're watching or listening, you can go to the show notes and you can click on a link to where you can get that book. So what other, I don't want you to obviously give away every secret in the book, but what are some other tips maybe in that book?
Well, I like smashing squares as a good luck charm. I'm a big believer in good luck charms. Trust me when I say that, because I got, 6 of them around my neck now. I never take them off.
You are a big believer.
But what do we have? We have the miraculous metal, and we have the Saint of Gambling, my good friend. We have a Saint of Book Polishing, another good friend of mine, and other variety of saints, right? It's a good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Fox. I appreciate it. As a way to give me the confidence that I think having a good sense of confidence, a good sense of being, is a winning combination. I think utilizing a magic square or the mojo bag might help you win a few hands, might help you win a few flat rolls, right? But overall, generally speaking, the house 2 has magic on its side. It's called the odds. And I don't care who you are, you're not going to overcome the house's odds. That's not going to happen.
Catherine Forfeather asks, I'm guessing about the things we're talking to, is there a form of ritual where you tie all these different techniques together, or?
Not in the book. I don't address that in the book. No, I don't do the spell work in the book. We do talk a little bit about, I think we mentioned a couple of psalms that might work. Now people are comfortable with psalms. We could go down really a lot of rabbit holes in a heartbeat. You invoke the god Loki, but again, just like anything else, I'm going to use the word bite. You can overplay your hand. If you think, for instance, that I have the Saint of Gambling around my neck. There's a big thing up in Panama where they're going to reopen the poker room. I hope to make it there. I hope to. No, I can't even pronounce the guy's name, but there's a Saint of Gambling who's Italian. Interesting guy too. He also started a loan. He also started a bank for the poor. God, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
We are jumping all over the place with all kinds of questions. We had a question from Flat Rockland a minute ago, which was interesting, saying, has the book Inner Vegas, which refers to PK and intuition in casinos. Have you read?
I never read that book. I would look into it.
Yeah, Joe Gallenberger's book, apparently, that ties into your ideas.
No, I'll get that book. Thank you for mentioning it. I'll have to get it. Yeah.
And sorry, you go.
Yeah. For your opponent, right? And this is, again, my opinion. I know poker players who play poker professionally. They spend 8 hours a day playing online. Then they go to the casinos during the weekend. They have an advantage over someone else who might watch something on TV, say Rounders, and think they're poker players, okay? They have an advantage. They do. It's an advantage that comes from training. It's an advantage that comes from practice.
So you were responding,
Yeah,
I guess, to Horace Smith's question, which I just
yeah.
put up on the screen: is applying magical techniques other than as a reminder of wise decisions fair to an opponent? So you're saying lots of people stack the odds in their favor any way they can.
By practice, by simple practice, by being sober, by analyzing people's body language, are all ways that people get ahead in playing poker, even slats. Is time you have the advantage by being aware of the rules. I mean, I wrote a series of books and Vegas table games. The number of people I play them that don't know the rules is staggering, and that's the first thing you have to do, be it slot machines or playing craps or blackjack, I know the rules. And yes, the casinos will teach you if you ask them to, but it's really a good idea to know the rules yourself. It's a really good idea.
I suppose some of that, just understanding human psychology and understanding the odds and these things, some of it starts to sound like magic without the K, like MAGIC, like just understanding human psychology and how to, make people think one thing while you're doing another. Is this because I've never seriously gambled. If I dropped a little bit of money in Vegas on a trip like a couple of times, sure, but I've never done any real gambling. But I'm guessing people who do it professionally are aware of people's psychology and
Yeah.
aware of how to present themselves and aware of how to, make people think one thing when something else is happening.
I have the chips from every mobbed up casino. I own a chip from all of them, right? When I have a problem, like am I stuck in a book, trying to get a book out there or trying to get something written down for the night and it's not coming well, I will play with these chips, right? Because I want to leave for a period of time in that casino back in the day, right? There you go. I want that. And I have a super powerful chip that I use when I get really pissed off on someone and I can't find it. But I have a chip for the Trump casinos. When I get really pissed off at someone, I'll pick up that chip and I'll play with it. And I'll sit there and say, okay, what can I do I don't say get mean to this person. What can I do to piss them off? What can I do to overcome this asshole today? It helps, right? Am I shining part of Donald Trump? I doubt it. Is it helping in some sort of thing? Yeah, I think it does. And you're right. Phil, and he also intimidates people. Phil's a good person who likes to intimidate. Or you can go and see, I don't know if you ever watch live poker games, especially the ones that done out of the Hustler Club out in California. And all the women who, God, this is a family show.
Yes,
all the women there who use their natural looks to get people to pay attention to them versus the game. Is that taking advantage of people? To the degree that men are stupid, yes, but men are stupid and women are evil.
I mean, something else we talked about a little bit before the show, and I think it's worth talking about now, is that there seems to be, and perhaps most people aren't aware of it anymore, but there seems to be a long historical or cultural or esoteric tradition where gambling is involved with the supernatural or with the occult or with magic. The idea of fate and luck and chance today, often just a throwaway terms, but once upon a time, these things like fate was attached with the fates. It was really attached with supernatural beings. Luck and chance often had a lot to do with the gods favoring you.
Absolutely.
Or not favoring you. And cards also, of course, there is a connection, of course, with tarot and with fortune telling with cards. So a lot of these things seem to have an interconnection. You hear about gamblers having, like you were saying, like lucky charms and things. They mightn't be.
There's multiple blues songs that talk about mojo bags. There are multiple blues songs that talk about guitar players, blue guitar players, harmonica players going to crossroads to try and meet old scratch to get that favor. Those songs are done for a reason. There's somewhat interesting, fun songs, but there's a point to it. People are willing to do a great deal to become famous. Thank you, Mr. Fax, I think.
Now, Joe says that Wayne is larger than life and funny too. I've known Wayne for, I don't know, well over a decade, maybe a couple, and you are larger than life and you're hilarious, Wayne, and filled with interesting things and knowledge as well, because I wonder if in some way, and again, I'm not a gambler, but I wonder if in some way that gambling connects us with those, even when even people who gamble who mightn't be on the surface conscious of it, if somehow it connects us with those older traditions.
It might at that. I'm thinking, interesting you say that because the Danish Brotherhood here has opened up a bingo parlor, right? And bingo is very, even though it's letters, it's very numbers oriented. And what I should do is take my magical squares and play bingo one night, because I can get 5 or 6 bingo cards for like $10. There you go. For like $10, I can go and eat some good food. I can play bingo for a couple of hours. I can see my magical squares help me win in bingo. So that would be a direct connection to the magical power. Because math, and numbers have a lot of power. Numerology is very powerful. I don't know why. I don't have a clue. It's very complicated. I only know the basics of it, but I can know it can take you down some really weird rabbit holes in a hurry.
I'm interested in the idea that there are numerical codes which have secrets in them, or that interconnect things, or the idea that certain numbers have certain powers. Like, I've always been fascinated with the number 23, the idea that somehow it's the agent of chaos, and that it can do all kinds of things for good. Chaos can be good or bad. And I remember the weird thing is, when you discover these numbers, like I watched the Jim Carrey movie. Was it Jim Carrey who's in number 23? I think so. Like a decade or two after I was aware of it. But I remember it's so true to the extent that when you become aware of a number, whether it's 1111, like people talk about seeing on a clock all the time, or whether it's the number 23. For example, when I first found out about the number 23, when I was 23, so go figure, right? I then went, oh, my mother's birthday was on the 23rd. I was in America when I found it out, and then I went home and I had I used to have band posters on my wall, which I took down from band gigs. There were multiple posters on my wall, including one on my bedroom door, which had, the 23rd, I think it was like April 23 or something, the day. And I'm like, all of a sudden, and then you see it everywhere. When you become aware of these numbers, it's like all of a sudden you've slid into some, cosmic code that you're about to crack. And I often wonder, is that really the case, or is it just because a number becomes, because you become aware, or you're told about the importance of a number, then you notice it when it's everywhere? Like, what actually is it?
Who knows? I don't have a clue. I know that I watched a documentary on the occult in Hollywood, and number 11 came up. And less than that documentary, about an hour's worth, you could see 11s. And the next question is, well, and you would know well, Dean, is in a film set, few things are left to chance. So did the film producers purposely set these things out to signify 11, or do we see 11 because we're told that's to look for, when all it is 2 shots, 6 shakers, and a tail? What?
And I suppose that's, in a way, and I'm sure you know this is even better than I do. In a way, I suppose that's what magic is. It's your subconscious somehow being interconnected with the other things around you, and feeling that there's a connection beyond there's a connection beyond just a physical reality, that somehow you're connected with the rest of the universe and interplaying with it somehow. And maybe you can control that when you're aware of it, or maybe you can impact it more when you're aware of it.
I think the impact, I'll say this much, and again, this is I say personal opinion, because I know I don't know very much at all, right? I know this. I know here we have woodline. We have probably 1/4 acres, maybe half an acre of woods. We try to take care of the woods. We try to take care of the stray cats and stuff like that. I think we're fading of them now, right? I try, when I'm getting depressed, I try to look for symbols of nature's power, be it in the trees blowing in the wind, be it the birds coming to bird feeders, be it the stray cats doing whatever the stray cats can be doing, and outside, whatever it might be, right? Because once I get that sense that I'm in the middle of something, that I'm within something greater than myself, and I can somehow direct it, I can't direct the ball of power to do whatever. I can't do that. I know I can't do that. I don't even think about doing that. But I can direct that ball of power, sit there and say, I'm not going to be depressed this afternoon because I can see the trees blowing in the wind. I'm not going to be depressed this afternoon because the sun is shining on my face. Whether it's going to rain, we need the water. It's how I choose to see the power of nature, the power of the greater power around me that gets me over, say, being depressed. That helps me overcome a situation I don't think I can beat. See something greater than me and being able to interact it to myself, in my opinion, in my life is very, very powerful.
That it is powerful. And I mean, I'm a Christian, so I'm often suspicious of religious or spiritual practices which seem to involve any appeal to magic or to anything else. But I think you're probably somebody who, as you mentioned before, that perhaps some things like Wicca have traditions where it is about healing through plants and through more natural ways. Is that something you can talk about a little?
I would say, well, to me, the basis of Wicca, and it's, again, I'm no expert, right? It's very much centered, very much nature-centered, very much empowering a woman, right? Very much empowering women. That's what appeals to women, because women sometimes get the short end of the stick, right? And when they can become a center of a group of people because they get brought up to be worshipped in a sense, right? Versus, okay, during the day, I am Hausfrau. I work at ABC Smith Company where I sweep the floor with something menial, but a couple times a month, I am high priestess, and I'm going to direct everybody to look about the trees today. Gives them that sense of empowerment. Now, what's really tragic about that, we want to go there. We'll go this way. Everyone, when you look at the pictures of the Wiccan circles, every woman is, say, 5'5", has long red hair, long blonde hair, within height and weight categories, and nobody is overweight. I can tell you for a fact, the ones I go to, new. But again, it's the myth of what to believe about ourselves. If it helps somebody do a better job in life, do what they need to do to get on with it, more power to them.
Is that the danger, though, sometimes of the occult and sometimes of all kinds of belief systems? I mean, that people can be attracted to it who are dissatisfied with their life or their reality. And maybe you can say it's a positive thing because they're trying to enact change, but you could also perhaps say it's a negative thing because they can be attracted to something which mightn't practically change them, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe if they get a sense that they're better off, maybe that alone means they're better off. I don't know.
Well, right now we have people who want to believe they're cats, right? We have people, university trained students, who are shouting death to Jews.
True. We can't be. I'm sorry, we can't be too political here either.
It's not political. This is news science, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
But in my opinion, that's nuts. I mean, but again, things can happen. I mean, things can happen weirdly. Well, my biggest issue, I didn't see a lot of this, are the ceremonial musicians and people in the Crawley. Because you get involved in ceremonial, it bites. It bites big time. It bites hard, right? If you read, in my opinion, from my experience, what I've seen in my lives, if you start reading Aleister Crowley's works and start practicing things he talks about doing, interesting things will happen to you, and all of them are not necessarily good things. I've seen fires break out for no particular reason. I've seen people who want to be hardcore, Crowley type people want to go to shit for no particular reason. Was it because of the book they're reading and things we're doing practicing magically? Or is it because, I'm not going to pay my bill, I'm not going to pay my child support, I'm going to run this red light. Nothing bad can happen to me. One thing leads to another. Who knows?
Yeah, Crowley, also referred to as the most evil man in the world or something, right? Is an interesting fish for sure. One of the Crowley stories which always interested me is there's a tale that he was living and practicing his magic on the shores of Loch Ness, and it was around the time of the emergence of the popularity and the visibility of the Loch Ness monster in modern times. So there's a suggestion, did Crowley do something or open something, and the monster was a result, or at least the modern manifestations of the monster, like those post the 20s when it got big again and got famous again, was because Crowley was out there fiddling around.
I think it's more interesting that when Crowley had that cabin, of who later in life, after he left that cabin, who owned that cabin, what happened to them, That's interesting. I think more fascinating is Crawley's experiences in the west coast of the United States, and what
That
he
is
did for
interesting.
Jack Parsons.
Jack
I'm
Parsons,
sorry, and all the stuff, just crazy stuff with the guy that started Scientology.
L. Ron Hubbard, yeah, they were all buddies. It's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking this, and this is myself being strange. Maybe Jack Parsons did summon something that runs and walks the hills of Hollywood today. That would explain a lot.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and I should write a book on it. That'd be my next.
You know what? That could be a bestseller for you.
Well, we're looking at trying to do the occult murders, but it's hard to, on first glance of doing occult murders, it's hard to tell if something's an occult murder or so many people at some nutcase.
Black Dahlia, is that an occult murder? Do you know?
No, it'd be a Black Dahlia. It's been like the West Memphis 3. It's supposedly black is satanic and some fortune. There's of course four sick young men in Chicago that killed like 89 women.
Good grief!
One breast and carry on souvenirs. That's pretty sick stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of sick stuff that would be something. Is that? I'm thinking that's more occult because some of them claim to be Satanists, but some of it was just strange killings. Was it occult or not?
And I guess the Manson family you could fit kind of loosely into that interpretation.
Loosely, right? West of Conan, the valleys up there by LA. It's crazy stuff. I mean, even today, it's crazy stuff.
That's it. That's interesting. You talk about maybe Parsons manifesting something in Hollywood, and I was talking about Crowley maybe manifesting something in Loch Ness. That, I suppose, begs a bigger geographical question. Like if either of those or both of those have any basis in some, esoteric occult, and occult, of course, just means occluded. It just means it's something which is secret. So occultists are trying to uncover greater secret, hidden spiritual truths. So if there is some occult truth to people practicing the dark arts or practicing magic, summoning things, then one wonders how many other manifestations around this weird world might not be the result of some type of magic. I've heard theories that the Beast of Bray Road, by the way, was manifested by people practicing some kind of black magic.
I was there. I should go visit that place again. It's probably 25, 30 minutes from here.
I'll talk about tell us about your visit to Bray Road. I'd like to hear that. I don't think I have before.
The last time my wife and I were in Bray Road, it was pretty built up. If there's a dog man in the Bray Road area today, as in 2020, say, last time we were there, God knows where you could hide, but who knows? But I'm mystified by the Hollywood thought is because we know all the strange crimes concerning children, concerning women being killed for no particular reason, fame happening to people suddenly, they suddenly become famous, and then a short time later they die. Anne Heche is a good example. She was famous for that brief period of time. Then her life went to hell, and she died in mysterious circumstances because even though the first report of her death is that she was drunk when she hit that house with her car, toxicology comes back clean. So what in God's name was making her drive in a way that when I look at that tape, makes it seem she's fleeing for her life.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, very. Yes, sir. I mean, when you have people, then you have, this will get you, then you got MK Ultra, right? And all the things MK Ultra was doing in California, and all the things they're doing around the United States, including Wisconsin. Was MK Ultra utilizing the mythology that people believed in with drugs to get them to believe and see things that didn't really exist, like I'm sure in candidate, and play with their minds? That's interesting stuff.
And then is there an occult connection, of course, because there's theories that there's an occult connection, and then you spiral out to the Nazis, and then you spiral out to the occult connections of the Nazis allegedly as well. And then and occult again could just mean occluded, just mean hidden. And then is there an entire occult tradition, an occult history that shaped far more of modern reality and the modern political world than we're even aware of.
And are the two sides fighting? If there's a light, the side of the light and side of the evil, are they fighting? I mean, that's fascinating as well.
Well,
I mean,
that is it. That is interesting because the now late Michael Heiser, who was perhaps the greatest Christian researcher and writer, and he had a PhD, like a legitimate PhD, and I think like Hebrew or ancient East languages or something. He wrote a number of books, and among them, and perhaps his major work, is a book called The Unseen Realm. And there's in that the idea that you can look at the Bible at a different level than is traditionally preached in your average church, which tends to downplay the supernatural, which is I've always found very strange with Christians, and I am one. But if you accept that, God manifested as a man, then died for your sins, and that's a massive supernatural ask anyway, right? But then they don't like really talking often, mainstream churches anyway, about other supernatural realities affecting people as well. But Heiser talked about the unseen realm, and he looks at many biblical passages, and which are very clear that it's much more complicated than we tend to led to believe. And there is perhaps this struggle going on. And now I'm leaving Heiser a little bit, but perhaps there is this struggle going on between the powers of dark, between the powers of light. And that may be a far more important reality than when we're just looking at what's happening in political process, for example.
going down that road just for a minute, when you look at the powers of light and the powers of darkness, what group is being attacked today that wasn't being attacked 10 years ago? Why the amount of hate that we see blowing up? What would bring that hate up to the surface? It gets really interesting in a hurry because, in my opinion, again, going back more to the Hollywood aspect of things, something's going on in Hollywood. In my opinion, something's going on with Hollywood. Was it because Jack Parsons tried to call something up and he thought it was called A, he calls up B, and nobody can put it back? Don't know. It's interesting that you want to look into. It's also kind of scary because people who sometimes look into that can go insane or die. And I'm like 66, and I'm probably nuts now. I'd rather than that go batshit crazy. I'd rather not die like tomorrow afternoon, right? And so,
sorry, you go.
No. So, how much you want to do? I mean, it gets interesting. I mean, there are people, as you were saying, there's like the guy you talked about before. There's a guy called Willens Ramsey. I hope I got his name correct. He's done some very interesting research and more research, and not only in the occult in Hollywood, but Aleister Crowley, the smiley face killer, all this stuff. When you look at it as a whole, gets terrifying quickly because isolated, you kind of ignore it. But when you see the totality of what's going on, it makes me think at least, what is going on?
Yeah, it's certainly, the more you look at these kind of things, the more you question the reality of the nightly news. Right. That's for sure. What do you think about the missing 411 stuff, the David Paulides stuff about these strange disappearances? Do you think that ties into any of the type of occult?
It ties into occult. I understand I've not seen it yet. There's some type of documentary that dismisses some of the things he's recently came up with. Saul.
I don't know. I like Paulides. I know certainly skeptics have been questioning and saying, well, this can all be explained by wild animals or, just people getting lost. But when you look at the cases, I think the points that he makes, which seem to be through lines on the cases he's interested in, it's freaking strange. And people who watch this show regularly, like I obviously want to talk to anybody and I'm very open in my conversations, but in many ways I'm skeptical in a healthy way, not like a debunker, but I'm skeptical about many claims and things which are said in the paranormal and the cryptozoological and the ufological space. And I don't agree with everything Paulides says, but I think that his research has really found what to me is one of the most important paranormal or anomalous mysteries of which have been looked at in the last decade or two. Like there seems to be something there to missing 411.
I agree. I mean, I would think that even if 10% of what he says happened, right? It's enough of a worry to me. I think this sort of thing is going on in say different parks. Should be a concern to everyone because the marshal. Can we prevent any bad thing from happening in all the parks? No, it can't be done. but they should be overall, generally speaking, a safe place for me, for you, for us to go with our kids, right? Have a nice time, enjoy the wildlife, enjoy the woods, enjoy nature without worrying about what else is going on. And that's why one of the things about the mojo bag, going back to that subject for a minute, if what I do and can do and stuff gives people the confidence to have a better time, more power to me, right? I'm thinking. Whatever that might be. I mean, it's important that we are aware of our surroundings. It's important that we know what's going on, right? I think it's important to know what these things might be going on and know your good pancakes recipes in case you run into the grays.
Speaking about running in the grays and knowing what's going on, though, I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day, who's watching Hey Baby. But there's a weird history of, and this is one example of many, but I'm just going to focus on this because we were talking about politis and other things, and I think John Keel mentioned it, of people who are berry picking, who have encounters with strange things.
Yeah.
And if you go through the Albert Rosali's humanoid book collection, he's got about 10, 12. He's got, I haven't even read them all. I probably read 10. There's more, but it traces the history of, just with case after case after case of encounters that people have had with non-humanoid entities. When you read those books, and he's not grouping them all together, it's just a history of it, right? The amount of encounters people have in those books with non-human entities when they're out berry picking is phenomenal. You hit it again and again and again. Politis, I was just watching a video of his the other day because I watch his videos on YouTube regularly and I really do enjoy them, where he brought up the berry picking thing again. He's brought it up many times. There seems to be, for some unknown reason, one of the times, and there are others, but one of the times where people most often seem to have encounters with non-human humanoid entities is when they are picking berries. Are there traditions about berry picking that you're aware of in the broader occult or Wiccan?
One thing that my grand aunt used to have us do, we would go out there and look. She was a big blueberry guy, raspberry, right? We'd look for him. Is she would always bring some Raging Jack with her, which is only an alcoholic substance, right? And she always would leave some behind as a thank you. When it came into the woods, we do this to this day. When we trim our trees, we knock on the trees. We tell the spirit of the tree, hey, we have to trim your branches because we're scared of the windstorm. They'll come to our home, what else, right? So we invite them to leave. We tell them that we need to do the pruning to give them an opportunity to peacefully leave. You know, when my good friend called Ulcis, died back in the day, we got ourselves an oak tree. We planted in my front yard. On the anniversary of his death, anniversary of his birth, and Christmas, would give him a glass of beer or a glass of whiskey. The tree has grown greatly. It's an oak tree. So in my mojo bag, we have an acorn from that tree. And I know I'm not stupid enough to walk down the street at night, when the drug houses are busy. I know better, right? But if I'm walking down the street, my own business, with my mojo bag with acorns in them, right? My confidence tells me that, I might run into some nasty people, but Ulcis is going to protect me. Will he? Who knows, right? I also aware enough, if I see them coming, let's cross the street. If I see them coming, let's do A, let's do B, right?
That makes sense.
It does make sense. Again, you have that confidence, but we also know the stories of the sagas, stories of the early adventures of the American frontiersmen, all the things they were able to do when they had their own things, their own good luck symbols with them. Lucky symbols, I believe, have power.
No, I mean, that's interesting. I'm going to read a comment from Flat Rockland because it's excellent. It's related to what we were talking about. And thanks for listening, Flat. He says, she says, I think it's a he, Flat Rockland. I actually don't know. I'm sorry, Flat. I had my audio running last huckleberry season very near Ape Canyon on St. Helens. He picked up a great scream, and he says, berry picking in Squatch country is my favorite. So this is again an example of berry picking, but here's a Sasquatch related story. But there's all kinds. There's UFO related stories. There's fairies. There's goblins. There's devilish looking pan creatures. And there's the missing 411 enigma where people often go missing picking for berries. So back to what you were saying, Wayne, you think that maybe it's because people aren't acknowledging nature when they're taking from it, or
I don't think if nature was out to get people, there'd be a lot more people dead. Because I think nature has a good reason to be pissed at people right now, even from time immemorial, right? But interaction with nature in a positive way is a good thing. Teaching our children to interact with nature is a wonderful thing. Teaching them that nature needs to be respected and how we can easily respect nature. The little actions that we do, like picking up the trash, maybe doing Arbor Day events, maybe having a garden. Little things like that go a long ways. And how many people even do that anymore? Even think about doing those things.
Flat Rockland also says lots of lore tied into the Fae and berry picking. There is indeed lots of fairy faith stories about berry picking. And Flat Rockland is a dude. He assures me so. Now I can definitely refer to you as him. So that's great.
I just hope that this conversation doesn't encourage the Brownies to do more here. I will give them some whiskey tonight. Because
let's talk about that quickly, because we can go a little bit over, because I love to hear your brownie stories. I'm not sure how much we've talked about on the show. Tell people about your brownie story now. We're talking about
we have a brownie who's the brownie I see is between 6 inches and a foot tall. It walks out of one wall and walk across the room and walk into the next wall. I have seen it. My wife has seen it. My kid then, now she's about 40, with kids of her own. When she was living here, she had a mobile upstairs in the room with horses on it, or unicorns on it. And she would see it ride the unicorns. Her friends would come over, as school kids do, let's sleep over at Whitney's. The kids would come over and sleep only one night, because they would see it and become scared. They'd go flat. And we haven't talked to it, hasn't said anything back to us. Usually it's like it's on its way someplace else. You get used to it after a while. The first time you see it, or the second time you see it, it gets scary.
I bet.
My wife tells me that lately she's been seeing it out of the corner of her eye. It's not walking out plain view, but she can see it out of the corner of her eye. The cats, who knows what the cats, but the cats won't come downstairs, and we don't come downstairs first. It's an old house. There are all kinds of things related to the old house. We're nice to it. We do what we.
And you leave things for it. You were saying before. What kind of stuff do you leave out for it, or what kind of gifts do you offer?
Brownies. My wife made brownies, so we'll leave out a piece of brownie. I'll leave out some whiskey I got for Beltane for it. Maybe it wants a drink. I have a drink. Everybody. Those things we leave out. Also, we give stuff to. All those I mentioned earlier. We take care of the cats, which I think have a connection. I think the cats have a connection to the hillside. I think that the cats, in some degree, don't really exist. Part of the function of the hillside. I know that makes no sense at all. I have no empirical evidence to base on that. That's a feeling I have, and yes, it's a silly feeling. You can giggle if you want to, D.
I really was. It's more. I'm charmed rather than I'm giggling at you.
It's better than other things. It's better than other things. When my aunt. Let me tell you something about my relatives and how vulture bags help. It's in the 50s, right? My grandfather is, I think he's probably in his 30s in 1950. His brother was probably my great uncle who was mentioned earlier, was around the same age. They lived in Rock Springs, Wisconsin, and a group of Klansmen, like KKK Klansmen, were in the area. My relatives on my mother's side, being African American, knew that they were going to be victimized by the Klansmen. So my uncle and my grandfather did what New Crooks do really, really well. They got drunk off their asses. They got mojo bags from my great aunt and a couple other magical things, and they walked into the clan meeting with firearms. Needless to say,
Oh, wow.
there's no more problems with the clan.
Good. Oh,
Now,
goodness.
I thought for a while, because my relatives are also drunks, big time drunks, that this is yet another alcohol-driven story. Let's impress the kids with a stupid story, right? Until one of my other relatives died, and someone from the Wisconsin Historical Museum showed up for the funeral and wanted to talk to my relatives who then went to talk to him. I talked to anybody, right? So I was a friend of the guy. He told me some stories and repeated the story to me about the Klansmen being Iraq Spring at one time, and then some kind of a gunfight occurred. He said he didn't know what was going on with that, but they left and never came back. It made sense. That part of that story might be even true.
It's a fascinating family history, my friend.
Now, was it the mojo bag that protected them? I mean, 2 guys against 12 or 13? Who knows? But something did.
Gosh, or the bravado, perhaps, just of doing it. Like, sometimes, sometimes if you act like that, it can intimidate people.
Maybe they just show up and said, "Get the hell out," and they left, right? But it's a story that builds, right? No, it's crazy. Wow, that's the nicest thing you ever said. Thank you very much, Catherine.
Now, we're probably towards the end of the show, and again, I will put your book up, your new book up on the screen now, Mr. Big's Magical Guide to Gambling. And in the show notes, I actually have where you can click through to the link you sent me, Wayne, to get that book. But do you want to tell people who are just like listening, maybe how it's the best way for them to get that book and how they find your other books? Because you got I don't even know how many books you've written, like 10, 12.
Put the link up to that book. That's the best way to buy that book.
Okay.
My other books are got to go into long detail. My books used to be found on Amazon, being republished via a real life publisher, will be in the libraries, in the bookstores like Barnes and Noble and the like. If you're interested in my books on the mafia, I do a bunch of gambling.
Do you have a UFO book?
Actually, Mafia out of Milwaukee. My name is Wayne Clingman, and you can find them online.
Well, man, it was as it always is, just a fascinating conversation with you, mate. I always love talking to you, both on the show and off the air. So thank you so much for coming back to Talking Weird.
Appreciate it.
Well, until I chat to you again, Wayne, until I chat to everybody else out there.
Have fun in New Jersey. Say hi to the Jersey Devil for me.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I should say just before the end. Thanks for reminding me. People, if you're in the New Jersey area, this Friday night, Asbury Park, 7:30, the New Jersey Fable Festival. Part of that is the Jersey Devil Fable Festival. Part of that is the Jersey Devil Film Festival. If you're my friend on Facebook or you follow Talking Weird on Facebook, you can go there and get links to get tickets. But it kicks off at 7:30 this Friday night. And come and see my film, The Shaver Mystery, if you're interested in the type of stuff I've been rambling about here about Richard Shaver and Ray Palmer and the creation of UFO belief and the Shaver Mystery for the past year and a half. I'd love to see some people who are listeners or viewers of the show there. So again, thank you, Wayne, for reminding me to say that. Thank you to everybody else out there. And until I talk to everybody again, keep it weird.